For more on the situation in Ukraine now, our international affairs commentator Douglas Herbert joins me on set. Hi there, Doug. So the world's attention has, of course, largely been on Gaza, at least for the last nearly 2 months or so. But the war in Ukraine continues. So Western leaders have been trying to reassure Kyiv that they haven't forgotten that.
Yeah, and this has been the real battle, right? Because yes, there's been the war in Gaza, pulling eyeballs away from Ukraine, and there's also been the bitter, polarized political fighting in the U.S., but really mainly reluctant Republicans in the lower house of the U.S. Congress, the House of Representatives, who are essentially threatening in many ways to pull the plug on further U.S. military aid to Ukraine. That would be, in some people believe, a showstopper in the sense that the U.S. by far has been the biggest military donor to Ukraine, over nearly $50 billion in aid since the war started to Ukraine. Europe has followed, but the U.S. has been sort of leading the charge, spearheading that drive. And the question at this NATO meeting, which began yesterday, continues today, has been, can they keep that support alive? Can they, as Jens Stoltenberg, the NATO chief, said, stay the course? I want you to see what he said yesterday to journalists, really, on the opening day of that meeting. Our obligation to ensure, our being the Western Alliance, Europe, to provide Ukraine with the weapons they need, because it will be a tragedy for Ukrainians if President Putin wins. It will also be dangerous for us. That was Stoltenberg yesterday. And Antony Blinken was there as well, the U.S. Secretary of State. They're trying to make all the right noises, to Ukraine. Please, we are still very much there. If anything, we are there more than ever, stepping up our support for you. But like I said, in the U.S., it is a pitched battle. And Vladimir Putin, frankly, is perhaps hoping that Donald Trump will win, because Donald Trump has been highly critical, or skeptical is perhaps the better term, of further military aid to Ukraine, representing that wing of his party. It's not that all Republicans are in favor of pulling the plug, but the calculation being that if Trump were to come into office next November, the military aid from the U.S. would be anything but a sure thing. There's about $5 billion right now left in the U.S. pipeline from previously promised aid. The question now is U.S. President Biden has pledged a package of $105 billion. Most of it for Ukraine, a little over $61 billion. A lot for Israel as well, I think about $14 billion. And this is what right now is under threat in Congress, at least the lower house. The Senate Majority Leader, Charles Schumer, is basically saying he is ready to consider that package of aid, that bill, in the coming week. The Senate seems very much behind continuing that support, but it's not a sure thing, and that leaves Europe in the lurch a little bit, trying to brainstorm ways at this NATO meeting, elsewhere in the halls of power. How can we step in and fill that void that potentially could be left for the U.S. and keep Ukraine's fight alive?
So realistically, then, what is and can Europe do? Does it have not only the financial but the political means to step in for the United States?
Like I said, Europe's making all the right noises, and it will swear that it is very much still there for Ukraine, and not just in words. Look, there have been extra pledges of military support. Germany, which used to be the laggard, in a sense, in Europe with military aid, has pledged to double its aid to over $8.5 billion next year. We have had pledges in recent days and weeks coming in from the Netherlands, from Finland, from Lithuania, from Belgium, the Dutch government pledging over $2 billion next year, the Belgian government pledging to raise nearly $2 billion. I think it's $1.85 billion next year. They intend to raise that money a lot from money raised from frozen Russian assets. So the Europeans are still very much there. A big question is ammunition. The Ukrainians saying today that so far they have received 300,000 of those much-needed 155 millimeter artillery shells. If you don't have ammunition, you can't use your artillery. They had pledged Europe 1 million artillery shells by next March. That's not far away. That's 4 months away. They're not on course. They're far short, but they are at least. The will is there right now to ramp up production, weapons, ammunition here in Europe, to restock Europe's own military supplies, and also be able to provide Ukraine with the wherewithal to make its ammunition and to have enough ammunition in the future. So Europe has fine words, putting some real action and euros behind those words, but the U.S. remains that outstanding equation. What happens if the U.S. pulls the plug? What happens if Donald Trump's reelected? Is Putin just right now playing the clock, waiting for that November election next year?
Certainly a lot of things hinge on that November election next year. Doug Herbert, thank you very much.